I want you to get together.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Nephilim Look Like Clowns. Today I want to just go over a few more final points about the Gorgon aspect I was talking about in my previous video. So in this one, obviously, I discussed that Athena is found on this vase from ancient Grecian artwork. And this depiction of the goddess Athena, the goddess of war and virtue and many other things, is often depicted with this thing on her chest, which looks just like a clown to me and you, as you can see here. And from this, obviously, I went on to understand that this is what's called a Gorgonian. And it's often depicted on Athena's chest. You can see this image of her here. We can see it on the chest. And it's often worn on the chest of Athena as a form of like an amulet of some kind. And it depicts Medusa. So here's another example of the Gorgonian, or the Gorgon. And it's said that the head of Medusa was gifted to her after it was slain, and she would wear it on her chest as a symbol of protection against evil. And this practice of using the Gorgonian image on shields and breastplates was continued throughout the Grecian practices in order to protect them from evil spirits and give them good luck going into battle. So there's many examples of the Gorgon being used here, and it has this clown-like feature. The big wide grin, the crazy wild hair, synonymously linked with serpents. So the more modern, common depiction of a Gorgon was, of course, Medusa, the most famous Gorgon of them all, and she is shown to have serpent hair. But if you look at more classical depictions of her on artwork, you find that she doesn't have serpent hair or the body of a snake, but is more human-like in nature, with perhaps dreaded hair. But this big, wide, serpentine, demonic grin is a reoccurring theme throughout most of the stonework involving her, as we see here. And this depiction of the Gorgon, I explained in my previous videos, can be found across many cultures. Many cultures. And I believe every culture kind of had their own Gorgon, if we could call it that. So what I thought was interesting is someone sent me an email who goes by the name of Amenhotep V. And he has mentioned this many times in some of my videos and my live shows, and I thought it was worth bringing this up, and I'd like to thank him for the very long email he sent me with a treasure trove of information relating to sun worship and the clowns. But one thing he did send to me and has mentioned repeatedly is the Egyptian god Bez sticking out his tongue. So it's a common motif that the Gorgon is shown with the tongue sticking out, and my previous video in this series is about the tongue being stuck out in particular, and how it's a common motif across many cultures when describing these demons. But here's just another example worth bringing into this whole Gorgon research. Bez, the Egyptian god. Now, he's said to be a good deity, and he's often used as a protector of the house. So he's placed above doorways as a symbol of protection. Not dissimilar from, let's say, putting Buddha above a doorway as a symbol of good luck. And he does have Gorgonesque features, and not dissimilar from what we saw here, and depictions of the Gorgon of Medusa. A very similar vibe with the face and the smile and the tongue sticking out we have here with the Egyptian god Bes. So I was looking into descriptions of Bes, and they have a female counterpart called Beset. And here we have some depictions of her, and again, quite Gorgonish. So just another connection there for another culture with the same iconography. And while doing my rounds and the research into this, I came across something very interesting, and that was the Minoan cultures of Crete. They have what is known as a snake goddess of a sort, and it's often depicted here in this statue. I believe these statues were only discovered in 2005, but it shows a priestess of some kind who has these snakes, and she seems to be more often depicted wearing this checkerboard skirt pattern here. And this is a really common motif which really fits in well to our descriptions of these Nephilim, and this black and white pattern is a reoccurring theme we see through a lot of cultures. But this is dating back to about 2000 BCE or 1500 BCE, so before the Common Era. So it's quite an ancient depiction of an ancient goddess or priestess, synonymous with snake worship. And I found this interesting because while I was looking into this, I was also looking into Bes and Beset, and I discovered that Beset was popularized and found in Minoan culture, where this woman comes from. And within Minoan culture, you'll find... I can just bring it up here. Here we go, the Minoan Beset. So this is an article all about this, and it's fascinating stuff, but it says that it was adopted through ancient practices and brought over to Crete. It wasn't long before replaced by another Egyptian god called Taweret, which was kind of a hippopotamus water-dwelling demon. And it's just interesting because obviously you look at this again, very Gorgonite in nature, and it seems like this symbol of the Gorgon was passed down through so many different cultures. We can't help but consider this this coincidence a huge piece of this puzzle, and why we get the clown-like features today represented from the Nephilim of the past. So, you know, Taweret and Bes are very similar. Even paired, Taweret and Beset are frightening, protective demon gods who had the biggest role in protecting the home. However, Taweret is associated with purification and lustral waters, whereas Beset is specifically a snake killer. And I just find it interesting because Beset, as I was looking into Athena, so yeah, I was looking into this Minoan snake goddess from Minoa, and from Crete, and she is said to be a precursor to Athena Parthenos. So this is before the goddess worship of Athena came around, who is also associated with snakes. And I find it interesting that Beset is described as a snake killer. So, if we consider that the punishment for the fallen angels who created these offspring was for them to watch their offspring kill each other off in warring battles, and I think the Nephilim, or the Titans, the giants of the past, also turned against their own parents, the fallen angels, which obviously pushed the fallen angels to have to kill their own children, or kill the snakes, you know, which probably came across to the people as, you know, these glorious gods protecting them from the monsters, not understanding that it's those very same gods who created the monsters that terrorized them. So it probably played off quite well for the fallen angels in terms of being worshipped as saviors by the humans underneath them. But I just think it's interesting that these parallels can be drawn, and all these cultures just seem to be linked to one another. Nothing's separate. And as I was looking into Minoan culture, it linked me back to Athena, who has this Gorgon on her chest, who is supposed to be a serpentine-haired serpent demon monster, which was known as Medusa. And it's just fascinating. But I think that's probably all we can discuss right now about the Gorgon. Look into it for yourself, guys, because it is fascinating, just how widespread this imagery is. But this version of Bes here was inspired by, obviously, the female version of Bes here from Egyptian culture, and she's often depicted with her tongue sticking out, just like the Gorgons of Athens and Greece, and, you know, it's just fascinating. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, guys. I thought that'd be a great thing just to bring to you, just to summarize all of this research into the Gorgon aspect of the Nephilim looking like clowns. Now, recently in one of my live shows, I was talking about quite a few things, and I'm not sure my subscribers know this, but if you do hit the live tab on my channel here, there is a slew of videos which you may have missed, where I do a weekly show, a live show called the Truth or Therapy Sessions, and I go even deeper into the clown research that you see in these short videos of this series. And a lot of what you see in the short videos actually is discussed first in presentations I do in these live shows. So what I want to do, obviously, is just to recap some things that were discussed at the end of this previous live show here, where I talk about the Smile film, medieval demons, and the Cloyne from a film in 2014 called Clown. So I'm going to cover that now for those who may not have seen it, but this research into the film Clown led me to another connection which I think is fascinating, and another thing which connects the Nephilim and the clowns and reptiles all into one amalgamated image. So in this film, it's a man who basically needs to find a clown costume quickly for his daughter's birthday, and he finds one in the attic. He puts on the costume and finds that he cannot take it off. It's kind of fused with his skin now. And what he eventually discovers is that this skin is the skin of an ancient Scandinavian demon called a Cloyne, as you can see from this image here. Now, this is a completely fictional demon. This isn't a real thing. It's all completely made up just for the sake of this film. But he is wearing the skin of this demon that ate children. And to free himself from the curse of the skin he is wearing, he has to eat 5 children. Pretty gruesome premise, but I think it's interesting to the aesthetics of this clown costume. Because I was watching this and I just noticed something in particular. This mask he wears has this skin frill around the neck with these spines running through it, if you can see them. And I was looking at this and I was just thinking to myself, like, I've seen this before, and it reminds me of the frills around a particular lizard. So if I can find it here, this right here, it even has the lines and the spines of the bones that go through the frill and the cartilage, which makes it expand. So this is a particularly reptilian feature to this particular reptile. And I was looking at the frill on this Cloyne, and I realised, clowns are often depicted with these frills around the neck. It seems to be another part of the caricature we call the clown. And obviously every part of a clown is a symbol for something Nephilim related. And this ruff around the neck is something I've kind of looked over till now, and I think this is where it comes from. I think what we're looking at is a representation of a reptilian feature, a distinctly reptilian feature called a frill. And as we know, the fallen angels had reptilian features, and their offspring also had reptilian features. So I think that's why this caricatured symbol of the clown with the frill, this is an image representing a reptilian frill of some kind, which the Nephilim may have had. So, one thing that I found which attests to this whole fallen angels looking like serpents thing is something which was brought to me by one of my subscribers, and they mentioned to me about looking at the Testament of Amran, part found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's fascinating, but there is this section where Amran has a vision where 2 angels are engaged in a great quarrel concerning him. So he asked them, "What are you? And are you talking about me?" And they answered and said, "We have been made masters and rule over all the sons of men." And they said to me, "Which of us do you choose?" So I raised my eyes and I saw one of them. His looks were frightening, like that of a viper, and his garments were multicoloured, and he was extremely dark. And afterwards I looked, and behold, his appearance and his face was like that of an adder, and he was covered with blank together and over his eyes. This watcher was known as Belial, Prince of Darkness, and he was, all his work is darkness, and he is darkness, and then a lot of these fragments kind of drift off, but the description is there. He looks like a viper, otherwise known as an adder, which is a snake. And I found it interesting when you actually look at an adder, they're more often than not black and white, with this psychedelic pattern right here. Vipera berus, or the adder, the viper. So these angels, these watchers, were described by Amran as having snake-like features. Their offspring also had snake-like features. And that the clown is nothing more than a modern representation of the Nephilim, satirized and cartooned in a way. But you look at the frill around the neck, I think we found it where it comes from. It's just another reptilian feature passed down from their parents, the adder-like watchers. And yeah, fascinating, guys. So there's another piece of the puzzle I thought definitely worth making an individual video about. So again, just briefly brushing over here, the adder looking black and white. This pattern is synonymous with clown symbolism. You can find it in, for example, the Heyoka tribe is the most common example used. But their joker, their clown, Kachina, within the Heyoka tradition, is depicted as black and white. And now there's two obviously camps of thought on this. Either what we're looking at here is a spiritual symbol to represent that the spirits of these beings are trapped in a fractaled realm, hence the black and white lines. But I do also think there is weight to it being literal, as though these entities, the Nephilim, may have had black and white stripy skin like that of an adder or a snake. They may have actually looked like that as well. Perhaps the face was a lot more white and the hair they had was red, but the skin may have had patterns like this as well. So there we go, guys. There's a little extra piece to the Nephilim looking like clowns puzzle. The frill around the neck, and Bess adding to the Gorgon subsection of this information. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Thanks for listening. As always, thanks to my patrons for your donations. It's much appreciated. I couldn't do this without you guys. And yeah, guys, I look forward to the next video. And as always, God bless.
I want you to get together.